Happy Sunday, my friend. I hope you had a great Eurovision Song Contest night. If you are into that, I loved Finland and Greece and Azerbaijan. They were like my favorites. I'm not so into rock and roll, but Italy was cool. Yeah, they deserved it. But that's not what I want to talk about today. This is actually a video I wanted to do for a long time. I really were looking forward to do that one day, and that's how I lost my first 10 pounds. As some of you know, I am on a journey to lose 62 pounds. I gave myself a lot of time for that. I do not rush anything, but it's a big project. I have to be honest, I didn't know what I would get myself into, but here we go. I think I will first cover a bit history and like going from month to month. I've been working on this goal, and then of course you probably want to see some results that I can give you or some pictures, and then maybe some thoughts about the whole thing and what I kind of would recommend you if you plan to lose some weight. Let's get started. On diets, I think, since I was 12. Yeah, I think that's about right. And I don't want to talk about about this history of dieting, but like in 2019 I really decided, okay, I'm done with it. I found intuitive eating and I totally fell in love with the philosophy behind that, and I said, okay, I'm gonna quit it. I'm going for intuitive eating. And I really learned the biggest principles that are like listening to your hunger cues, learning to stop when you full, but mostly legalizing all kinds of food. You really should try to stop this thinking of this is good food and this is bad food. And I think I really did well on that. I remember I had a honeymoon phase with eating a crispy chicken burger at Burger King for like 3 months. Every week I would eat one chicken burger there. Like, it is very normal to gain weight during that process if you have been restrictive before. The problem was that although I really tried to incorporate everything, I really worked on myself, I still would binge. Like, I think there was a short period where I didn't binge and then I just continued. I also decided to work with a coach and it didn't really help. Now in retrospect, I would say I didn't commit enough for this coaching. I wasn't honest enough, I think, also with myself, but with my coach. But I was kind of lost. But also in private, I had several issues, like I quit my job and I had a burnout. So it was like the whole package. And then in 2020, I was still like doing intuitive eating, but I found the Brain Over Binge Recovery Guide, which is about learning to stop binge eating by learning to manage your urges. It is a lot of like mind management, and that really helped me to stop binging. So from there on I was like, okay, I feel like I start to figure this out, and I really feel like this kind of mind management is something that I feel like is like the key to so many things in my life. And that also drove me back to the Life Coach School, which is a podcast that I really enjoy. That's how I actually ended in 2021 saying I want to lose the weight that I had gained over the last 2 years, which I think is mostly actually excessive weight because I had so many binges. There were also like some health implications. I had some health problems. I was really annoyed by that I had to buy new clothes all the time because they wouldn't fit anymore. There were also stuff like certain yoga poses that I couldn't do anymore because like the belly was in the way, and that was really frustrating. And I felt like that was kind of like, okay, I really want to change something. So in January I worked on listening to this podcast and incorporating some of the ideas that they had. And one is like weighting yourself every day, which can be very tricky. Most people do not like it, and I would say I was one of them. It can really mess up with your mind, but that's where the mind management comes in. And I also had to commit to a food protocol. That is a 24-hour plan that you make the day before, what you're gonna eat the next day, and then you have to keep it. That plan doesn't have to be any kind of diet, doesn't have to be restrictive. It just can say, okay, I'm gonna eat yogurt and fruits for breakfast, and then a salad for lunch, and then a snack in between, a banana, and then a bigger dinner, for example. It has to work for you, but nobody else. And I think that's really important, that you do not follow other people's meal plans, but that you learn to find your way to eat. So in February, I had lost some weight, but not much. It was kind of strange because like I started to lose some weight, but it was always like the same numbers. I was able to weigh myself every day, but like the food protocol didn't work out all the time. I just could see now in retrospect I wasn't 100% committed to it. And I felt like I had no really idea where to go, and I had no real plan. I think that was mostly, I was kind of struggling knowing, what am I going to do here? And something that I learned over time was that I did some mini quits with my food protocol, that I didn't write down what I ate, or I wrote something down but then did something else, or I didn't write down anything, and that's like a mini quit. And then a lot of like these small quits will end up with one day you just say, oh, I don't do this anymore. But I didn't want to give up. I think I've been an expert in quitting, like sports or programs or courses. I have quit so much, and I feel like I got really good in that. It became a habit. So in March, I listened to some podcasts that were a lot about like this recommitment. I thought like I need help in staying consistent and committed. And I really believed the whole life coach school mindset and philosophies they teach. So I found a coach. Her name is Carly Tizzano. She is a New Year's resolution coach, which I think is super cool, and she has a certification from the life coach school. That was like really important for me, to have somebody who's like teaching right these mindsets that I felt like where I probably will need help with. So I recommended to that. I committed to a 3-month program with her. Together we made the goal that my goal will be not to quit. And I really started to think about having a plan, like an action plan, and I thought about like the whole project. How am I gonna lose 62 pounds? And I said like, okay, I want to try to lose 1 pound per week. So that means like it will take more than a year to get there, and that's okay. So I recommended to my food protocol, also for weighting myself. I did a spring slim down challenge that I decided to do, and I also had like an emergency plan for plateaus, which I actually didn't use, but this is something you will learn on the way. What I also started to do was weekly reviews of the goals I had actually set. And I think that's something that was really important, to have like measurable goals and see, okay, how did I actually do this week? And I also planned to write my own weight loss journey. And I felt like it would be very fun to actually reach certain milestones. And it really reminded me when I was on a pilgrimage in Spain, walking for 800 kilometers. And so I actually printed out pictures of every stage on my pilgrimage with a goal weight that I had to reach to get this picture. And every Sunday I will check if I have reached a new destination, and then I will hang that up in my flat. And I also will read the entry of the travel diary, which is super helpful and very motivating and inspirational on my own weight loss journey. So in April, I actually really started to put things in place, working on the things that would come up every week. I went on a cabin trip with my friends. I will link that up in the cards. And in that week, I had no scale. So I really had to work on myself, really listening to my body, how much food I needed. And I was totally shocked about that, because I was like, wow, actually, I really need very small portions until I'm full. I might have to eat more often during the day, but actually the portion sizes are very small, which is kind of a bit sad, but that's probably actually what my body needs. I also learned to treat failures like a scientist. So I remember I had several days where I would have gained weight overnight, without even, like, I had no explanation for it, because like we're following my food protocol, we're looking through different explanations. That can be just your hormonal cycle, it can be you ate too much salt, it can be very different things, but in the end I found out, oh, it's probably because I ate very late. So I kind of stopped eating too late. Usually I stop at around 8, and then because I will go to bed at 10. So that kind of changed, for example. And it really helped me to understand, okay, this is a setback which you have to learn from, without getting all these feelings of, oh, this is not working, and why is the scale not budging, and why did I gain weight, even though you know it's just probably water. But it really helped me to get a different mindset to this whole project and to understand that this is part of the journey. I also celebrated 4 months being binge free, and I remember it was amazing to realize that I had worked so hard in the last months and it really paid off. But then 2 weeks later I binged, actually. I was feeling physically horrible, and I binged, I think, 2 or 3 days. And I think in that time my coach could really help me to see, okay, what is happening, what kind of story are you telling yourself, and how do you actually get out of this again. And I really could see, like, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and then you start again, and you just keep going. I also started to incorporate an evening routine, which I absolutely love. I usually read for 50 minutes, and then I work on a self-development project. Like at the moment I'm doing the Brain Over Binge recovery guide, and then I will do some yin yoga. And I think that's just the perfect evening routine to wind down before I go to bed. And that's something I started in April, and I totally love it. In May I struggled a lot with emotions, and realizing that I would eat a lot of them. Especially I would create a lot of negative emotions at work, like frustration or stress or pressure that I put on myself. And it was kind of no surprise that I would eat when I come home, because I hadn't processed them properly. So we tried different things. I tried like resting, I tried to journal, I tried to meditate. I kind of haven't found like the perfect thing yet, but it is kind of easier for me now to just sit there and feeling, for example, restless or a bit frustrated over the day without feeling, oh, I have to eat. But I got totally overwhelmed by all the habits that I had started doing. Like in the end, I think I had like 20 habits at that point in May, and I was like, this is way too much. So I sat down, looked at what is really important, what can I do now, and what can wait. So I ended up having like 8 habits that I kind of also will continue now into the next phase. Also, like with spring arriving, I really could see that I've been way more active. I go so much more on walks, and I also feel like I just want to hop around or run somewhere, and something really has changed. And then in the end, I actually reached my goal of 173 pounds on the day that my first phase that I called the Kickstarter phase actually finished. It was just like the perfect day. So I decided to divide this 62 pounds that I want to lose into 6 packages of 10 pounds. And I gave these phases different names. Like this one that I just had was the Kickstarter phase, and the next one will be the commitment phase. And it really helped me to see where I'm at now, where I want to go, without getting lost into, oh my goodness, this way is so far. Because I was just thinking about reaching the 16th of May, and now I'm thinking about reaching the 25th of July, and this is where I'm working on. And what's happening in fall or winter next year, I don't think about. This is the only thing I concentrate on. When it comes to results, well, I have lost 10 pounds in more than 10 weeks. It took me way longer, but that's okay. I think that's really important to actually also communicate. I feel like there's a lot of pressure to lose weight also really fast. I think I listened to a podcast when somebody was talking about like losing 15 pounds in a month, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm losing only 5. But it's not a race. I have to feel comfortable with it. I do not want to change absolutely drastically. I'm also really afraid that my body will not keep up with that, and that I will yo-yo back if I lose it too fast. So that was kind of my goal, but your goal can be different. When it comes to measurements, I lost 3 centimeters on my chest, 3 also on my waist. Then I also tried to measure around my belly, which is a bit difficult, but I think it was around 5 centimeters. And then I lost 4 centimeters around the hips and also 4 centimeters around the thighs. In total, I did 30 workouts in 10 weeks, which is like around 3 workouts per week. And I also include walks for that. I think it's most important to actually being active than really following a strict program and training 5 or 6 times a week. So far this is not a goal for me, so I just try to be active and get some steps in. And also celebrated 100 days of writing down my food protocol, which really felt, it just felt amazing to see that something has changed, and I really have been committed to that, and I stayed consistent with it. When I started this project, I thought it was just about losing weight, but I realized this is so much about all kind of other things. Staying committed, being patient, also working on your body image, because I realized that even when I was my thinnest, I wasn't happy with myself and I still wanted to lose weight, although I can see it now on the pictures that shouldn't have happened, and I'm thankful my body was like, we're not going lower than that, because it was way too much. When I think about this first phase that I just finished, there are some moments I'm very proud of, like just knowing that I have come so far, that I haven't given up this time, that I just kept going, even there were a lot of times where I wanted to give up, but it gets easier. Now I feel I'm way more confident in this whole project. I'm not like I'm gonna give up tomorrow. I definitely don't. But this is something that takes time and practice. It also helped me to understand that this project is really hard. What I learned from intuitive eating, that 2 to 5% of people doing a diet will actually lose the weight and keep it off. And the rest of all of them won't, which I think is crazy numbers. And it just shows how difficult something like that is, because we have so much food around us. I think a lot of people are not able to process their emotions without eating them. And the body also has certain mechanisms to stay at the place it wants to be. So you have to work through a lot of things. And I think most people are really impatient, including me. When you don't see results immediately, you might give up. What I also realized was, like what I already talked about, like the portion sizes, but also I went several times into the city and wanted to buy something, like went to Burger King or somewhere, and I was like, but I'm not hungry. I wanted to go in just to have like this excitement of getting something there, but then I was in there and we're like, but I'm not hungry, so I left again. And that was like a major success for me to see, okay, something has changed here again, and that's so cool. So for example, with child's pose, where I felt like my belly was in the way, I can see that it's on one hand practice, but on the other hand also because I lost weight, it is way easier to do the pose now. Also, when I started with my Fitbit in January, it was like in the 5th or 4th hole, and now it's in the 3rd. It's so cool to see, not just like on your numbers with the measurements or the scale or on pictures what you have changed, but like also like small things like just your Fitbit. My coach and I, we worked on body image, but I kind of pulled a bit on the side because it was too many things I had to keep up with. But I still can see now that a lot has changed. Like when I look into the mirror, I see that I'm less critical with myself. I have less negative thoughts. I'm not sure if I have more positive ones because I haven't really been aware of it, but I really can see that something has changed in ways of how I talk to myself and how I see myself. And I know that I have to continue working on my body image, because if I'm reaching that goal of the 62 pounds, if I don't love my body there, no number will change that. And I better start now and work on it than reaching it there and then just saying, oh, I still hate my body. That would be so sad. And I think often we kind of intertwine these things. We think like when we lose weight, we'll be happy. And that is just not the case. We will just be thinner and all the same problems will still be there. Okay, this was a long talk and you might have expected something completely different, because I think when I was watching stuff like that, I was like, okay, what do you eat? What do you train? What do you do? and I'm advocating for, if you want to lose weight, you have to find your own system that works for you. You have to do a lot of trial and error without connecting that to your self-worth. You're not a bad person if you fail, and this is just part of the journey that you really gonna start loving about. Like, I always track my setbacks and my victories every week to see where I have evolved and where I still have to work on, because some things will come up over and over again and it's just a sign you still have to work on that. But I want to give you some ideas what can help on the journey. For me, the most important one was letting go of perfectionism. And working with a coach, I just realized that I never identified as a perfectionist, because I said, well, I'm not doing anything perfect. But that is a perfectionist mindset. And I could see I had this mindset with losing weight, with fitness programs, at work, with friends, with my family. And letting that go is quite hard. Sometimes it's also really difficult to understand and actually to be aware of it. So I think working with a coach at that time was perfect, and also listening to some podcasts, and I will continue working on that, and I think I will do an extra episode just about that one day. The other part is the self-worth part that I already talked about. I think we're way too easy saying we're not good enough and we try to fix ourselves, but it is actually all in your mind. Probably one of the most important thing is having patience. I know other people could have been already at 30 pounds now at the time, but this is my journey and I try not to compare myself with others. And probably the last thing, experiencing setbacks really help you to understand things that you still have to work on. Setbacks, in retrospect, is the perfect opportunity to see, oh my goodness, I have grown so much because I overcome this obstacle and I learned from this setback and I had this learning moment, and it's so important of the journey. But I think a lot of us have like this mindset of things have to be perfect and we shouldn't fail or it shouldn't be that hard, but we can do hard things. And I feel like the satisfaction of doing hard things is just so amazing that I can just recommend it. And I never thought that this weight loss journey would help me in so many areas of my life, that I would learn so much and I would grow so much. For me, the most surprising thing, I thought this weight loss journey is more about like what you put in your body and what you train, kind of like that, very simple. But in the end, it was such a big thing, and I'm so surprised about what I learn about myself, where I start to grow, where I start to show up and to work on myself and stay committed and doing hard things, especially if I had like belief systems that I don't do hard things. And I'm actually very thankful for every obstacle that appears on the path, because I know this is an opportunity to learn and to grow and to get better. I hope you could take something out of this video. I will put the link to my coach, but also to the podcast I'm listening to in the description box. And if you have any kind of questions, please let me know in the comments below and I will try to answer them. Thank you for sitting with me for like, I think a half hour or something like that. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Stay committed, stay consistent, don't give up, stay magical, and I see you next week.